So then we are back with more understandings from the time of the Second Tabernacle services, where we find the Aramaic English translation of the word. This translation comes from the original manuscripts of the prophets of the Israelic lineage, so then we can understand the time of the end as per Mashiyach the prophet. We find layers of understanding of the spring feast, the autumn feast, and also the returning of the cities of the Mashiyach laid waste for many centuries. As we read then Mashiyach the prophet, we understand then a factor of layering these holy prophecies, so then we can understand the times and the seasons. And there is a distinction as far as how a person teaches, based from the Hebrew language versus only facts. So then it is important at least having the basic bearings as far as where we are at time-wise, and also the importance of the spring feast and the autumn feast, but then the explanation of salvation from the holy instructions. Then once they have these in mind, when the Mashiyach then was explaining the way of salvation to his people, bear in mind the Mashiyach did not speak plainly with the people. He only spoke plainly with the disciples, or then the Shilishim, because there was a reason he was doing this. He was then preparing and refining those who he had chosen, so then they would produce much fruit in the future. And because of these, in today's society there are so many congregations of many kinds, and they simply sometimes don't understand the importance of steps of formation, explanation of the original manuscripts. The Mashiyach was and is and shall be always a Hebrew person, and the distinction from what he is as far as tabernacling and who he is as far as a person never is going to be far away from being Hebrew. So the natural tendency is then studying the language and trying to learn what the Mashiyach then he learned early in life. But then on the other side, churches and many other congregations, they don't have this experience. And so many people, they have asked, why then these congregations are so much in trouble as then the world is? It's because the steps of formation were not then respected. So as we then further ourselves on as far as reading the instructions and learning Hebrew, then we become aware of these topics of what then the Mashiyach explained. It is very important also when we have doubts as far as the holy instructions, we should ask those who are then more acquainted with the Hebrew, and it does not mean that they are going to have the answers every time, because sometimes even those who are ancient as far as the Hebrew language, sometimes they don't have the entire understanding at once. So and then the Creator himself, he has said that he will use those who are not even from the lineage to do his work. And this truly is a reality, because he has promised even the Gentiles he was going to use. Now there is a time and a place where then people should come together and talk and come to conclusions as far as what the holy instructions are teaching us. So then, the Mashiyach was explaining a situation regarding then the vine and then the Creator being the cultivator. Now, from the Hebrew perspective, he's explaining a certain way with his people, meaning the 12, and then with the people, the population, he was speaking always in parables. So the Mashiyach was never giving a straight answer. We could tend to read the holy instructions, and people always want to have straight answers. Now, the Mashiyach, when he was doing his duty, he never spoke straight answer with the people. Because people in a state of being evil, rather than learning what they do, they mock. That's why then the Mashiyach did not speak plainly with the people, because of their ignorance and the lack of desire of learning the natural situation of the evil in their lives, turns the situation into mockery. And many of us, including myself, sometimes speaking straight answers, sometimes the situation becomes even harder than if I would speak the way the Mashiyach spoke. Because the Mashiyach then would only speak to those areas where then the Spirit would then help those interested in learning. Whereas the others, if they want only money, only pleasures in life, they would not make mockery out of it. So then, when the Mashiyach explains regarding then that he is the vine, and then the Creator is the cultivator, this is very important. Then the branch that is in him obviously must produce fruit. If it does not produce fruit, he, then the Creator, takes it away and he prunes it, so then it can bear much fruit. And those people who are in the Mashiyach not producing fruit, then these are burned with the others. This is truly valuable for Gentiles and also those involved with the ministry. Don't think for a moment a person then, as far as being Hebrew and not producing fruit, also is taken away and burned at the end. It must produce fruit. So there is a time in a place where then we should listen to the leaders, we should learn with them, we should then become in a position of showing others and producing fruit. It's not only learning, it's not only participating, it's not only talking with the leaders, but must produce fruit. And produce fruit is talking with other people, but there is a time and a place and a way of doing so. With this in mind, then, the Mashiyach says, you are already pruned because of the Word. So then what the Mashiyach has said, he has spoken words, he has spoken understandings, completions of the Torah, and then his disciples, he's not speaking with the population at this time. He's speaking with his disciples. And you are pruned because of what the Mashiyach has spoken. So then, as far as when we are then a group of people, we must bear in mind that we must produce fruit, including the layers regarding the spring feast, the autumn feast, what the Mashiyach did during his time of service, what it meant, then the first menorah, the second menorah, the first service given by Moses, and the second service given by the Mashiyach himself, the first tabernacle, the second tabernacle. People must receive these kinds of understanding because they can position themselves so then they can learn other areas, for instance, of the Torah and then also the tabernacling. So then not only they can give directives without teaching, but then later on, when they can do teaching, then when they do so, they can do with understanding of Hebrew, so then people they can quest themselves or they can study by themselves and then becoming more acquainted with what the Mashiyach has done and Moses and the Shilishim. So then, it's not truly complicated, but it takes time. And there is a time and a season for every purpose. But speaking of what the Mashiyach has done, it is extremely important. Because the Mashiyach has said, you are already pruned because of the word that he has spoken with them. So the Mashiyach is explaining is those areas who are then bad in our lives. We can understand he was speaking with the disciples and he said, you are already pruned because of what the Mashiyach has said. Should we then talk regarding the Mashiyach so we can prune, the Creator can prune our own lives? Of course. We are not going to be perfect every time. But as we understand the path of salvation, gradual, in a gradual understanding, we should limit ourselves in what we do. I didn't say a person should quit at once and then become imperfect. A person goes crazy if a person do this. But in a gradual understanding, the more a person learns, a person limits itself. It's like, quit smoking. You can't do these at times at once. You have to make a program, to do a program, or then starting with 20 a day, and then you come to 5, and then 4, and then sometimes 10. But then the understanding is, the more we study the Word, the more we talk with people, then gradual, very gradual, then a person should stop smoking. Not saying that a person is going to do this in a month or in a couple of months. Sometimes takes a year. And sometimes those who are in the ministry, who never smoked, who never drank in their entire lives, sometimes they think it's easy to come out of it, and it's not. It is very hard. So let's say a Habib of a congregation never drank, never smoked, never went to a party, was never scandalizing himself or herself, and then when they observe the Gentiles with so many problems and so many vices, so many bad habits, they think because they spoke the word of the Creator, then they are absolutely at liberty of every problem. It doesn't work that way. Those people who are in bad habits, it takes time. So sometimes they have this tendency, because they are speaking the words of the Creator, that they are endowed with power from heaven. When they speak because they spoke the word of the Creator, then they should be at liberty from any bad habit. It doesn't work that way. Most often, more than 90%, a person has to go through a program and then reducing, bit by bit, and takes sometimes years. And sometimes when there is a situation going on, a person can reduce its time. So then, let's make sure we value what we have as far as teachings, but also we have then a balance of understanding what teaching means and those people who are coming from the outside. Because the Mashiyach himself, he has said, he had come for the lost people of Israel. And he compared them with those animals so dearly that they used to take care of in fields. What does it mean? The Mashiyach came for the lost. The Mashiyach came to those who were ostracized. They were outside. They were placed away. So then when we understand the importance of bearing with those who are involved with situations that sometimes can take a long time to get rid of, then we become more acquainted of what the Mashiyach has said. Now he also values those people who they do not drink, they do not smoke, they do not carouse around. But the Mashiyach came for the lost. So then we should not only maintain what we have only because we don't smoke, we don't drink. We should not maintain our status and enjoying our status because then we don't do those things. Absolutely not. Should we be involved with those things? No, but we should work on behalf of those who are lost. Otherwise becomes maintenance of clubs. And the Mashiyach came for the lost. So then continue on what the Mashiyach has said. He said, abide in me and I in you, as the branch is not able to produce fruit by itself, so then you can produce fruit being a branch in itself. And he continues on. Whoever abides in me and I in him, these then men will produce much fruit or plentiful fruit. Because without the Mashiyach, then a person simply can't produce fruit. So then, after we are then learned and we understand then the tabernacle, we understand then the various intricacies of the tabernacle, then there is a time and a place where then the evangelism must take place. It is an obligation. When the Mashiyach spoke, then you are pruned because of the word that is spoken with you, and also you must produce fruit. The Mashiyach simply is explaining that you have to learn, understand what the Mashiyach said, and then produce fruit, speaking with other people, so then the lost souls can be then brought to the kingdom of heaven. Now, it's not only going to countries. It's not only going on the other side of the world and then speaking. Sometimes it takes personal one-on-one conversations and then maintenance of those people who are coming out of the world. Most often when a family of the person is not from the Hebrew lineage, it is absolutely extremely hard, because the spiritual link with an unbelieving family is absolutely destructive. So if you are then from a family where your parents are then obedient, you are absolutely privileged and you don't know what's on the other side. Because the temptations, the persecutions that comes because of families that are not from the Hebrew language are extremely strong. And it is very uncomfortable and very painful. So then if you are from a Hebrew family, You have the whole situation then, so you can praise and you can be thankful. And obviously produce fruit. Now, there is another situation of these. It's not going into the world and then evangelizing the world as far as the lost people. The Mashiyach said the lost people of Israel, those who already had the knowledge of the Torah. Now, in this world that we are then in a world that people don't even know the Torah. They have never heard of it. So it takes then double strength, not only to go out and to save the people, but then teaching them what the Torah means. Now, in order for these, then, the Mashiyach has to come and be part of it, so then these can be then completed, this objective then can be achieved. Next time I'm going to talk more of what the Mashiyach has said in the enlightenment of the tabernacling. So please stay tuned, much more coming up.